Why don't you take us into our second segment? All it takes is all you've got.
Yeah, and this is a segment that I'm very happy to be presenting to everyone. As I said in the first segment, pitchers are made in their off season. Or another way to say it is what they do off the mound is what is going to create a better performance on the mound. And pitchers have got to work out. They have to train. And the biggest problem that occurs, I mean, way back when I first started this in the 90s, dedicating myself to being a strength coach for pitchers, everyone looked at me like I was crazy. Well, now we know it's at least more acceptable. But really and truly, with the high-powered hitters and the high-powered velocity that's going on, the body can only do so much. The mechanics only provide part of the whole scenario. So training is critical, and training seriously is important. And I think I've mentioned this before on my prior podcasts. You know, the group of guys that I right now recently got drafted, and a lot of my guys in colleges, they were part of an experimental program that I started with them at 11 years old with supervised strength training. And of course, you train differently at those ages in terms of reps and weights, but they were learning and doing all the same movements, squats, lunges, etc. They were just working in the way that's appropriate for a boy who has not come into his puberty yet. So they don't have testosterone, so they can't develop huge muscles, but it's the time they learn technique and they're building on the strength of the tendons, etc. So there's a certain way you train with the youth, but it was an experimental program that never ended. And these guys now, it's so great to see them in the gym training on their own with the best technique and the knowledge that they have because they've been training their whole life. So training is critical, and the demands on the body from training are so important. So part of this podcast, the content over the next few months, is I'm going to be walking you through important things you need to be doing in the gym. And today I want to talk about priority training. And priority training is a term that we use in the world of lifting weights, etc., where we take a body part and we say, this thing is a weak link right now, and I want to priority train it, meaning you want to do it more frequently. You might want to hit it with more exercises. You work it in, but focus your brain on that. I need to get this muscle stronger. Now, a pitcher is going to be needing to spend some time lifting weights, particularly if we have somebody who's in the off season. And our next podcast will be occurring at a time where I'll be talking about off-season training. But for right now, whether the pitcher is pitching on a team or if he is in off-season, I want him to priority train his rear deltoid. Now, the rear deltoid, the shoulder complex, is called a deltoid, and it has an anterior portion, a middle portion, and a posterior portion. And the posterior portion of the shoulder, the lat crosses it, the part of the rotator cuff, two of the external rotators cross it at a deep level. The posterior deltoid is in the back of the shoulder. So the back of the shoulder takes a beating, and the smaller muscles, which are the two external rotators of the rotator cuff, work along with the posterior deltoid in these three exercises I'm going to recommend. Each one of them has very significant value. And even though they're targeting the posterior deltoid along with the two external rotators of the rotator cuff, they also build in a certain position of the arm that the arm has to memorize and know because it's in that angle for most of the pitching motion. So these three exercises should be done together because we are going to priority train over the next 3 weeks. And then I will be adding more things on our next podcast. But I want every coach who's right now designing programs to priority train the rear deltoid because the front of the body gets tight on a pitcher, the back of the body loses integrity. This is just something to kind of remember. And even though you want the pitcher to train all his body parts, if the rear shoulder doesn't get caught up, then every time you train chest, you're making the rear shoulder even weaker. The rear shoulder on every pitcher that comes to me, and this is when I was a strength coach for pitchers and when I do mechanics work with them. I always look at their alignment and at their structure. And the rear shoulder of their pitching arm, I don't care who they are, it is in need. You can tell it's different, you can tell it's worn out, and it needs to be built. So these 3 exercises that I've selected are the 3 exercises that I call the magic 3, because when you do them, you are not just creating a good angle for mechanics, but you're also rebuilding the tension. And depending on where you're at in the season, I'll be giving you some suggestions for rep patterns. But so, Joe, the first exercise we're going to look at is the rear deltoid exercise that's called the bent over reverse fly. Okay. And so everybody, you can take a look at it too. And I've got one of my pitchers, and I grabbed him yesterday. This is Nick from College Park, and he's doing the bent over reverse fly. And this exercise here, because of the position of the low back, that's a critical thing. The body needs to look exactly like that or even a little more arched. So that is the body position, chin up. And notice that his arm is at a perfect 90-degree angle to his body. His elbow is straight, his hand is pronated, and because I grabbed him at the field, I gave him a 3-pound dumbbell. And you'll notice that the rear deltoid is the main mover, bringing that arm into that position. And for you kinesiologists out there or physical therapists, I know you know this exercise, but you are working in the transverse plane on this, horizontal abduction. For anybody who's interested in anatomy and joint actions. Of course, you're going to be doing both arms. And this exercise is the number 1 exercise, meaning number 1 of the 3 that you're going to do. And you will do all of these 4 sets of each. And you'll start with this exercise. So let's go over to the next exercise. Okay. And so that is going to be number 2. And it's called the side lying reverse fly. Now, this exercise here, my pitchers swear by this exercise. And this is Chris, who pitches for UC Davis. And I took this of him when he was home a few years ago. This exercise is one of the best rear delt exercises that there is. Now, notice he's getting what we call eccentric or negative emphasis. What that means is as he's going towards gravity, he's slowing the arm down, because gravity is trying to pull it fast. So he's slowing it down, getting strength while that muscle is in stretch. So when he's going from the bottom position at the floor to the upright, the arm is vertical, that's the concentric part or the actual contraction part of the exercise. But on the way down, him slowing it down is giving him what we call a deceleration strength. And this right here is exactly the way the rear of the shoulder works when you're pitching, because your arm's going towards the plate and the rear of the shoulder is actually contracting as if it's trying to keep your arm from flying forward with the ball. My guys love this exercise. It's one of the best. And when you do this after you've done the bent over reverse fly, it's quite profound. Let's just put it that way. So this is the side lying reverse fly. So let's close that down. And now let's take a look at the third exercise.
Angel, I just want to point out to the listener, if you're not on Angel's YouTube channel right now, you'll want to head over there. And if you're in the middle of your exercise yourself, you're jogging, you're in the car, whatever, just make a note to go on to Angel Borrelli pitching on YouTube, and you can follow along with these descriptions of the videos and the exercises.
Oh, thank you so much, Joe. Oh, and by the way, on that exercise we just did, also notice that the arm was at that 90-degree angle, which is what the arm is at during the pitching motion. That's the place we want it, not lower, not higher. So, okay, now let's go to the third exercise. Now, for those of you who own my first pitch strike warm-up and recovery program, you'll recognize this. Now, this is Max, another one of my pitchers from College Park, and I grabbed him yesterday. This is part of the pre-pitching warm-up program, and I'm showing it here with the resistance band. And this exercise should be done in the gym along with the other two you just saw. And you would use a cable instead of the resistance band. So you have to be on a cable machine that allows you to lower the pulley to shoulder height. Now, I'm showing it here because let's say you right now, you go, okay, well, we've got to figure out a way to get my son training or whatever. Get him a 5-pound or less resistance band and have him do this movement before and after he pitches. And my first pitch strike program has tons of movements just like this that take care of the body. Now, what I want you to notice on Max is it's very important for you to be able to correct things. Now, one of the things we're working on with Max in his mechanics is to keep his arm up at 90 degrees. The reason why I didn't refilm this, notice when he pulls the band back to the place next to his body, notice he's dropping his arm a little bit. His arm needs to stay at 90 like you saw in the other exercises. But he did this, and of course I corrected him after I filmed him. But what I wanted you to see, because it's very important that things be done correctly, and errors you see in the exercises are going to usually be the same errors you see in mechanics. And this is something we're working on with him. So for him to do this and to start having the arm go low, which what's really happening is the lat, which also is involved in this motion, is taking over and trying to pull his arm towards the ground. His rear delt needs to be a little stronger to help maintain that arm at 90 degrees. Other than that, he's got pretty perfect technique, and he looked great after we did this. But I wanted you to see what a slight tiny error in this could do, because it can actually build in the error that you have with mechanics. So, okay, so that's that. Now, the thing about the 90-degree angle that you're getting from this, the shoulder joint is the rotating joint that delivers the hand to release the ball. And that shoulder joint, we want it accelerating. And it accelerates and moves most nicely when it's at 90 degrees. So when you can have exercises that not only take the muscle that's used a lot in the pitching motion and the ones that are really getting beat up, but the exercise choices that you select, because, there's 100 exercises for the rear deltoid. But these three, what I love about it is it's building in that memory of keeping the arm at 90 degrees. And without the pitcher even knowing about it or even thinking about it, he's getting more than one thing from the exercises. That is what we call making exercises work for the sport that the athlete is in. These are very pitcher-specific exercises. Plus, even though we call these rear deltoid exercises, the infraspinatus and the teres minor, for you muscle junkies out there, those are the two muscles of the rotator cuff that externally rotate the shoulder. They are also muscles that take a beating in pitching. They are actually being worked along with the rear delt on these three exercises. It's why these three exercises are so important for pitchers. So what I want your pitchers to do, if they're training on a chest day, they put these at the end. If they're doing it on a shoulder day, they put these at the end. If you're just going to priority train it and send your son into the gym and say, hey, you do these and I want you doing them 3 times this week with, let's say, every third day, you want these getting done 1, 2, 3 in that order, 4 sets. And your rep pattern on this would be anywhere from 7 to 12. If he's doing a weight that he can handle 12 times and he's never been training, that would be the appropriate weight. If your son has been strength training and as he moves on into the off season, he may be able to work with a heavier weight that he can only use 8 or 9 times, repeat 8 or 9 times. So somewhere in the rep range of 8 to 12 will be correct for the pitcher, and the technique has to be absolutely perfect, watching to be sure that the arm doesn't change its angle. By the way, the error that you saw Max made, which was so tiny, but I see it, the sideline reverse fly, it's very easy to make the error on that, as it is on the reverse fly of the dumbbell exercise, because the lat is so strong, it's trying to pull the arm down. Great training for the pitcher to understand that angle. So there you have it. So I want everyone on this for the next 3 weeks, and to get this combination done at least 3 times, maybe with 2 days off in between if you're priority training, or fit it in with the rest of your schedule.
All right. I think most coaches and parents are familiar with the exercises that were prescribed by Dr. Jobe about 30 years ago or so. I don't think any of these 3 are among that series of exercises.
No, but because those were different types of movements, and I mean, we progressed since then. I mean, there's some basic movements. Some movements in there are contraindicated now, but everyone wants to remember I come from a serious bodybuilding strength training background, and as an Olympic weightlifting coach as well. We work with things joint by joint. That's why my warm-up is designed. My first pitch strike program is designed. Everything's joint by joint. You don't see fancy here. And the reason is because, I look at pitchers running around on the field. I see them in practice. I want their workouts to be exact and specific. They're getting all the crazy stuff when they're actually doing their sport. So yes, training has come a long way, and being very specific about what joint you're working. And of course, because I'm also a kinesiologist, I bring a little more to the table in the sense of, my job is to really analyze movement down to the cellular level. Normally with just strength coaches, you've got similar knowledge, but it may not go as deep. So when I analyze the motion, and then I understand the way the body works, I can match those things. So these 3 movements, which probably you've seen in the gym, but remember, it's not what you do, it's how you do it, and it's why you're doing it that's going to give you the effect. None of these 3 things are like exotic. Most everyone who sees it's like, oh yeah, I know that exercise. But when you put them together synergistically, they have an effect. And when the pitcher is doing it, trust me, by the time he gets to the last exercise, which looks like the easiest, he'll be on fire. There's no question about it. Make sure he does both arms, by the way, even though I'm only showing the pitching arm in the videos. So, yes, training has come a long way.
Yeah, I would say so. Well, that's pretty much it for today. This is some really good stuff, Angel. I have to hand it to you. You're always, every time I think you've hit your high note, we come out and you hit it again. So this is
thank you.
This is really useful, very useful stuff.
I'm not fired. That's great.
No, we'll keep you for at least one more episode.
Hey, I appreciate that. And everyone, everything I talk about is, thank you so much for all the emails and the calls. And, I take it to heart and I listen. And any question that any of you have about this, if it's specific, contact me. But if you have a topic you want covered that is about the decisions, the important decisions we have to make day to day to keep a pitcher healthy, please feel free to contact me, and I'm happy to include it in a program or to just answer your question on the phone, however it works.
Right. And you can actually customize a training program for a pitcher. That's part of what you do in your job, correct?
Yeah, I do that only, and I know it sounds crazy, but I only do that when I'm working with a pitcher and his mechanics or have analyzed his mechanics. All my programs for each pitcher that I do come off of what he needs for his mechanics. So that, let's say, pitcher A is doing a forward lunge and pitcher B is doing a forward lunge. Well, but they may be doing it for a different reason. And that pitcher understanding the reason and doing it with that reason in mind gets a different benefit than the one that's doing it. So he's getting mechanics plus training. So everything comes off of what the pitcher needs. And if his arm drops low in his pitching motion, I've got to create movements for that. So I don't just randomly, people call me all the time and say, can you give me a good chest workout? Well, I can't give a pitcher a good chest workout if I haven't seen his chest, seen what his needs are in his structure, and also what do you pitch like? And then when I have all that, then I'm able to come up with designing a chess program. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but that's how specific a program really needs to be for a pitcher. Pitchers need to be respected. Their skill is very special. They're very special, and they deserve that kind of specific training, and that's what I provide. So that's a great question, Joe.
All right. Well, then I think that if people are interested in really being prepared, they should reach out to you, angel@gymscience.com. For sure, go to Angel's website, gymscience.com. And again, if you have questions or you have topics you want covered in an upcoming episode, please send an email to angel@gymscience.com. And you should definitely go to her website and check out all the great products she has. For now, I think we're done. We'll be back in about 3 weeks. And until then, we wish you safe and effective performance on the pitching mound.